Now, I told you that occult knowledge was used by certain secret brotherhoods in order to give a turn to events which would serve not general human aims, but the egoistic aims of a particular group. I told you that certain secret brotherhoods entertained views about how Europe ought to be structured and how they could influence that structuring. Today I want to add to what has already been made plain, something that has not yet been mentioned. I do this because it seems to me to be a good thing that once at least, in however small a circle, something is said which will certainly be made known in the future, just as the division of Austria has been made known in the note from the Entente to President Wilson. Those who knew about these things could have sketched the division of Austria as long ago as the 90s. I do not want to go back any further, on the basis of the maps I have already mentioned. Whatever is made publicly known is only a fragment. It flows into external, exoteric affairs at a time when it is considered to be useful, but the rest, meanwhile, is held back. Truly, I say what I am now going to tell you not from the slightest political or inflammatory motive, but solely in order to let you have the facts. They do exist in the world. I am truly very far from wanting to worry anyone or persuade anyone to believe anything in particular or be anxious about anything, for I am concerned only with knowledge. So let me sketch approximately part of the future map of Europe as it was worked out in those secret brotherhoods. So as not to take too long, my sketch will only be approximate. As I said, this is the form which such secret societies thought Europe should take at some point in the future, and the lecturer draws something. First, they turn their attention to the Southern European Balkan Confederation. This was to be a kind of bulwark against Russianism. Obviously, in the West, Russianism was considered to be the opposite pole, definitely not something with which to remain linked forever, but something against which there would always be a need to fight. Since the intention was to weld together the present kingdom of Italy with the Balkan Slavs, and the southern Slavs at present belonging to Austria, this confederation would comprise a large part of the Apennine Peninsula, the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland, the southern part of Austria, Croatia, Slavonia, and Dalmatia. To this, the northern part of Greece would be added. The confederation would also include Hungary and the Danube estuary. This would be the Balkan Confederation. Next to this eastward would be everything belonging to Russia in the wider sense. In the program shown in these maps, it was always, I mention this expressly, sharply stressed that however Poland might behave, it was a necessity of world history that the whole of this country should, whatever the circumstances, be returned to the Russian Empire. From the start, the program said that Poland, including the parts now belonging to Prussia, must once again be included in the Russian Empire. So, according to the program, the Russian Empire would include today's Poland, and also Galicia, reaching beyond the Slovaks. The part that I am shading here would dip in like a peninsula. This would be Bukovina, and the drawing was continued. Then would come France, which, starting at the Rhine estuary, would cover the territory over as far as the Rhine and the French-speaking part of Switzerland, and would be bounded here by the Pyrenees, and here something like this. Nothing much was said about the Scandinavian peoples. No doubt they have been granted a good long respite. The rest would be German-speaking Switzerland with Germany and the German parts of Austria. They would cover this area. And these colored parts would fall more or less into the sphere of influence, however that might appear, of the British Empire: Holland, Belgium, the coast, Portugal, Spain, the lower part of Italy. We can speak about the islands another time, and the southern part of Greece. So here we have a map for which the one we tried to draw on the board yesterday is clearly a kind of payment on account. The Central European part looks quite similar to that implied by the note from the Entente to Wilson. This is what was seen to be an ideal structure for Europe. I repeat yet again, this is not something remotely intended to influence anybody. All I want to show is that this structure for Europe, clearly traceable by me to the 90s or even the 80s, was taught in certain secret societies. The reasons for wanting to shape Europe like this were also always given. Ways and means, of course, the reasons were eminently sensible, for achieving this structure for Europe were more or less described. We shall talk about this tomorrow. Just let me say that I am not making this up. It is something that lived as a powerful impulse in many heads, something that had to be brought about, something that would have to be brought about by every effort. I know very well how ill will could easily maintain that it is improper, in consideration of a particular point, to say such things precisely here, of all places. But I do not want to be inflammatory, nor do I want to set up a picture of the future, either for those nations now at war or for those who are neutral. I have nothing to do with these things. I speak about them merely to show you the impulses which existed in those circles. What we have here is a picture of the future arising from endeavors to use certain impulses in the egoistic interests of a group. Those who are shocked to see what would disappear might remind themselves that we are concerned with the tasks of mankind in general. Things which emanate from the egoistic interests of a group are obvious, and there is no need to regard them as fateful, as pending fate. What I do regard as fatal, however, is the attitude of hiding one's head in the sand, of simply refusing to recognize such facts because they are uncomfortable, with the excuse that such things ought not even to be thought because they might cause disquiet. Of course, I know that it could be said, we should not speak about such things because they might upset people who are honestly striving to be neutral. But the foundations on which we stand ought to have enabled us to transcend this kind of upset by now. We should be capable of looking at what is really happening in the world. And when I say these things, it is on the assumption that you are sensible enough to take them in the right way.